never managed to put them back on.
You need to come to a workshop.
You
need to come to a
I need
workshop.
an upcycling consultant. 2025. What can we expect, fashion-wise?
I think bold prints are back. People are loving. I think you walk on the streets in frollos and oversized men's jackets.
So the exact opposite. We have drastically underperformed this morning. You're just saying not like us.
We just woke up this morning and thought it's winter, it's cold, it's grey.
Grey, miserable.
Is that not the way to go?
No, it is. It's still, I think because fashion is expressive. It's whatever you want to express yourself. You know?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Wednesday, the 8th of January. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
Kemi Badenoch's call for the government to establish a national inquiry into grooming gangs will be put to a Commons vote tonight. Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle has decided. We're live in Westminster throughout the show.
And across the pond, firefighters in Los Angeles say they cannot contain the flames as devastating wildfires force some 30,000 residents to flee for their lives. We're live on the ground as the unprecedented disaster shows no signs of slowing down.
And wear face masks and stay at home. No, you're not watching a broadcast from 5 years ago. This is brand new guidance from the World Health Organization as HMPV cases surge in China and prompt fears of a possible worldwide outbreak. Cause for concerns, or is this just a bit much?
And remember all those ads that appeared on London telling you to join the money revolution? Well, Sadiq Khan has been forced to remove them. All of these billboards featuring a controversial Islamic preacher. This was first exposed, of course, by GB News.
OK, well, let's go straight over to Westminster on the breaking news relating to the vote on grooming gangs. Christopher Hope, take it away.
Hi Emily, hi Tom, that's right. It's going to get quite interesting this afternoon here in Westminster, all afternoon on GB News. The Speaker has granted the Tory amendment to the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill. This means that there will be a vote on whether there should be a national inquiry into the rape gangs scandal. The amendment, if it passes, would wreck this bill, which has other things in there, including with ensuring children can't be removed from school where they're put at risk by an adult, and removing a legal new cap on school uniform costs. So it's a big bill, but this amendment put down by Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Tory party, specifically says it calls upon the government to develop new proposals for children's well-being at the same time as establishing a national statutory inquiry into historical child sexual exploitation focused on grooming gangs. This is exactly what Keir Starmer has said will not happen. He has said moments ago on GB News from the PMQ's session just finished in Parliament that it would take 7 years. There's no time. We've had enough inquiries, he says. They say that the Baroness J inquiry reporting in 2022 with 20 recommendations, only 4 of which the Labour government has said it will push through with. That was the inquiry. Kemi Badenoch said it was one of the worst scandals in recent history. You need to have an inquiry to remove the taint of other innocent Muslim people in this country, and that's why it's important to do it. She quoted Jack Straw saying that white girls were seen as easy meat by Asian gangs. By resisting it, she said that people worry there's a cover-up. All of this will be played out now in the House of Commons in a debate this afternoon. This amendment put forward by the Tory party. No one has joined the dots yet, she says, Kemi Badenoch, but this will ensure it happens. Keir Starmer says it's short-sighted, misguided, bandwagon-jumping approach. He wonders why Kemi Badenoch didn't mention the grooming scandal in 8 years as an MP. It will get very, very interesting in the House of Commons later on today. I should say, though, that if this goes through, it still is it's unlikely to happen because MPs will be whipped to vote against it on the government side and probably on the Liberal Democrat side, but certainly on the government side. So it's more of an embarrassment for Labour MPs having to vote against a national inquiry, which so many victims are calling for.
It is interesting, Chris. During Prime Minister's questions, of course, Sir Keir Starmer said he met with some victims who said the opposite, but clearly very, very strong views from many, many victims calling for this inquiry. We're going to catch up with you a bit later in the programme. Thanks for joining us live from Westminster.
Well, thank you very much. That was Christopher Hope in Westminster, I believe. We are turning now to the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. The top story this lunchtime. Well, Kemi Badenoch has hit out at the Prime Minister, warning that resistance to a new national inquiry into grooming gangs could, she says, spark fears of a cover-up. That comes as news we were just hearing there from Chris Hope, broken in the last few minutes, confirmed that her call for the government to establish a new national inquiry will indeed be put to a Commons vote later tonight. Earlier, though, in a clash at Prime Minister's questions, the Conservative leader demanded to know if Sir Keir Starmer is confident that he fully understands the scale of rape gangs.
Let us have the truth. He won't listen to the victims who are calling for a national inquiry. He is making this all about a bill this afternoon. Later today, he will tell Labour MPs, including in Telford, Rochdale, Bristol, Derby, Aylesbury, Oldham, Bradford, Peterborough, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Ramsgate, to tell all of these people to vote against a national inquiry into the gangs which have systematically gang raped children in their constituencies.
Well, Keir Starmer fired back, claiming that Kemi Badenoch never once, he said, raised the issue of grooming gangs when she was in power, accusing her of only now jumping on the bandwagon.
Not once in 8 years did she stand here and say what she's just said. Not once in 8 years. They didn't act on the recommendations. They want a national inquiry. We had a national inquiry, the J inquiry, the J report. 20 recommendations. Not a single one implemented. Not a single one implemented.
And we will, of course, keep across that Commons vote later in Parliament and bring you the very latest developments right here on GB News as it happens. In other news, though, tributes are pouring in this afternoon for a 14-year-old aspiring rapper who was fatally stabbed on a bus in south-east London, that's in Woolwich, on Tuesday afternoon. The attack, described by police as a horrendous crime, happened just before 2:30 in the afternoon. Messages featuring doves have appeared on social media, posted under a rap video of the boy performing. Anti-knife crime charity Project Lifeline has revealed that the teenager himself had laid flowers for another victim killed in the same area just 2 weeks ago. Police say they are now working at pace to identify those responsible. In the United States, a state of emergency has been declared as a massive wildfire sweeps through Los Angeles in California, forcing thousands to flee the flames. Firefighters are battling fierce winds that are turning homes into what can best be described as infernos. Over 30,000 residents have so far been evacuated, with more than 13,000 buildings now in danger as the blaze continues. The latest pictures show neighbourhoods engulfed in flames and people abandoning their cars and seen running for safety. With millions of Californians on high alert, the White House has confirmed that federal resources will be deployed to help contain the blaze. And staying in the United States, President-elect Donald Trump has suggested the US could use military or economic force to acquire Greenland and the Panama Canal. During a wide-ranging press conference last night, Trump also proposed renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Take a listen.
We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name.
Well, those comments came as Donald Trump's son visited Greenland, where local leaders firmly stated the island is not for sale. Trump's remarks have left many now questioning his serious intent to expand US territory, with Denmark and Panama strongly rejecting his claims. Here, meanwhile, the NHS is urging patients to attend A&E on their own as rising flu cases push emergency departments to what they have described as breaking point. York and Scarborough hospitals are among those asking for public support, while critical incidents have also been declared across several trusts, including Liverpool, Cornwall and in Birmingham. One patient reportedly waited 50 hours for a ward bed, with frontline staff describing the system as overwhelmed. That comes as flu cases in hospitals have now surged to 5,000 a day, with NHS Medical Director Sir Stephen Powis warning the pressure is relentless. And Britain is bracing for a deep freeze as temperatures are set to plunge as low as -15 degrees this week, the coldest of the winter so far, and potentially it could be the coldest January in 15 years. The Met Office has now issued a fresh snow and ice warnings for northern Scotland and Northern Ireland, with sub-zero conditions expected nationwide. The UK Health Security Agency is also warning of rising health risks, extending its cold weather alert for England right through until Sunday. And meanwhile, flood alerts do remain in place, though conditions are much drier after days of heavy rain. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Westminster and Tom and Emily.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 9 minutes past 1, and this row over whether the UK should launch a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal has intensified this afternoon, as the Speaker confirms there will be a vote on a Tory amendment to launch a fresh investigation, what some would describe as the first specific investigation nationally into the grooming gangs issue. Sir Keir Starmer accuses those backing such an inquiry of prioritising retweets over any real interest in safeguarding of children.
OK, well, meanwhile, the father of an abuse gangs survivor has told GB News about how he was arrested when he tried to rescue his daughter from a rape den.
Well, Jack spoke to our national reporter Charlie Peters, who joins us now live from Rotherham. Charlie, what did Jack tell you?
Welcome to Rotherham, Tom and Emily. This location here is known to many as having its beautiful views over the town behind me. But to those who know the full history of this town, this area was also a grooming abuse hotspot. Like many parts of this town in South Yorkshire, children were taken here, away from the eyes of the authorities and the police, and they were abused by gangs of men. In some cases, when the police did see children being abused, they did nothing. In some of the most appalling cases, when the police saw children being abused and those trying to intervene, they arrested the parents instead of the abusers. Earlier today, I spoke with Jack, one of the brave fathers of a survivor from this South Yorkshire abuse scandal. He told me what his experience was like and also what he hopes will happen later today in Parliament. Jack, your daughter was being abused by gangs and the police were doing nothing, but they did come for you. What happened when you tried to save her from an abuse den?
I was arrested outside, put in police car, taken away. We lived up next estate, so as we were passing, the stop car told me that I would be arrested, to go in the house and don't go back. I was that mad and furious, I went back to the flat. Within a few minutes, police were back, but this time in a van, and it were only a few minutes. So there must have been some on the street waiting, because they must have known I was going back.
So they were watching this flat where your daughter was being abused. They weren't going in to save her, but they did go in to arrest you.
Yeah,
twice.
Yeah, they arrested me second time, took me down at the police station, kept me in there. About an hour and a half later, they come into, because they didn't put me in a cell, they put me in a room. They took me out of the room, took me out through the police station, into the front bit with public, go to report crimes. Took me outside and said, right, go home, because if you go back to that flat, we're going to arrest you for stalking. And I don't know if you know or not, but there's serious new stalking laws coming, and we'll arrest you for stalking the occupants of that house.
Extraordinary. Yeah. Now, this is Rotherham.
Yeah.
This town, it's well known what happened here, but there are so many different towns where fathers just like you were also punished for trying to save their daughters from abuse gangs, and there have been cover-ups, and the police haven't done enough. Right now, we've got this vote coming in for a national public inquiry. Labour say they're going to get rid of any MPs who'd vote for this. What's your view on that?
The trading children being drugged, beaten and raped for votes, because they will not have, they keep saying they're not going to have a national inquiry. The only reason they don't want one is because it's going to have to be into Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs. And they don't want it. They'll lose millions of votes, millions. That's why they don't care about the children or families. They don't care that children have been drugged, beaten and raped. They just want everything swept under carpet like they've done from day one.
Now, Labour have said they will support local inquiries, but when their MPs have said that they want inquiries in their towns, they've been called racist. Anne Cryer in 2003 in Keighley, she was shut down when she raised concerns. Do you think they don't want this national inquiry because it will expose Labour failures and big problems in the past?
100% it will. And it'll show you how little Labour keeps saying that People's Party. No, they're not. No, they're not. They would not let any child, don't matter what ethnicity they are, they would not let any child, if they were People's Party, keep having to relive this and not have a national inquiry to finally get it out.
Just before this vote happens, what would you say to the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer?
Just get on with it. Let's have a national inquiry. They keep saying there's been inquiries. Yeah, there has, right? 6 towns out and over 50. That's just a small percentage, right? There's not been one inquiry out of them 6 into the ethnicity of the grooming gangs, and that is the main point. Let's just get on with it and put this to bed for good. People of this country deserve to know what our children are facing, and they're facing it today. They're facing, parents are facing their children going out in danger of being drugged, beaten and groomed. I know I keep saying drugged, beaten and groomed, but I'm saying it because that's exactly what's going off to this day. And it hasn't stopped. They're not scared of getting caught because the sentences that they're getting, 2 and 3 years. Even biggest sentence, 34 years. That were for 11 girls. That works out less than 3 years a girl. They're trying to tell me this is serious sentencing. No, sorry, but it's not. I'm just want Keir Starmer to be a man and realise that UK public and citizens deserve to know. They deserve to know about the grooming gangs because otherwise the children are not safe. They're not.
What a brave man. He fought against the authorities who tried to shut down his attempts to save his daughter. And eventually some justice was achieved for her. Almost 20 years after she was abused, when the National Crime Agency launched its Operation Stovewood investigation into Rotherham. It was a historic investigation for allegations of child sexual exploitation. One of her many abusers was jailed, but so many more in this town and across the country have avoided that justice. Now, Jack is lucky, in a sense, because there was that investigation in Rotherham. And as you heard him just say, it looked into just 6 towns in the ICSA report out of over 50 where GBNews has identified credible reports of on-street grooming gangs occurring. But he has continued campaigning even though there has been some justice in Rotherham, because he wants the investigation that happened here in South Yorkshire to be repeated into every town and city across the country where this appalling travesty has occurred. There were thousands of victims in Rotherham, at a conservative estimate 1,400. The Casey report in 2015 found 1,510. More survivors have been identified since by the NCA investigation. Who knows what a national inquiry might find if it were to be launched? And you heard there from Jack that he hopes that the government can pass that and, as he says, just get on with it.
Charlie, it's such a powerful piece, and how telling that, thank goodness Jack was from one of the 6 places that were investigated. But there are at least 54 that haven't been yet. How many more Jacks are there that haven't seen justice, that haven't seen closure, that haven't seen any kind of retribution? Really, really shocking stuff. Charlie, we're going to be catching up with you, of course, throughout the programme, but thank you very much indeed for joining us at the top of the show.
Can you imagine that? You find out that your daughter is being abused in what's been described as a rape den. You go to try and rescue your daughter and you find yourself arrested. And then your daughter has to wait 20 years for some kind of justice. I mean, this is a story that's been replicated across the country, and thank goodness Charlie Peters is there bringing this story back away from the political squabbles to the voices of the survivors and their families. It's an incredible story in the true meaning of the word, really.
Well, we should say that in response to the grooming gang scandal, South Yorkshire Police has issued this following statement. Since the publication of the J Report in 2014, our understanding and handling of cases of child sexual exploitation in South Yorkshire has evolved and developed considerably. We have shaped our policing response after listening to the experiences of victims and survivors of these horrific crimes, and their courage and bravery has instigated this crucial change to policing.
Yes, the force has publicly recognised its past failings in terms of its response to child sexual exploitation, and we remain absolutely committed to safeguarding victims of exploitation in any form and conducting thorough investigations to bring the perpetrators of these crimes to justice. If you are concerned about child exploitation, or if you think you are being exploited, please report it to us so we can help.
For their part, the government has said no child should ever suffer sexual abuse or exploitation, and it is paramount we do more to protect vulnerable children, which is why we're working at pace across government to drive forward real action to implement the recommendations of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse chaired by Professor Alexis Jay.
And this is the thing, isn't it? Keir Starmer is saying, and he said it in PMQs, that the J Report is adequate, and all we need to do is implement the recommendations that were already in that J Report. But of course, as Charlie and many others have pointed out, it was limited in its scope in terms of time frame, and also the fact that it didn't just focus on these types of grooming gangs, and it didn't focus on many towns at all, did it?
It's strange. In some ways, it was far too limited because it only looked at 6 of these towns. But in other ways, it was far too broad because it also looked at Jimmy Savile and the Catholic Church and all different types of child sexual exploitation in the wake of those scandals at the start of the last decade. It looked almost everywhere, apart from the other 54 towns that GBNews has found had some of this stuff going on.
I wonder if it suits the establishment to have a very broad inquiry, so they don't have to focus on just this particularly thorny, particularly controversial, particularly difficult to talk about issue that is of these localised on-street grooming gangs where mostly the perpetrators are of Pakistani heritage. It's a difficult one, isn't it? And talking about all types of child sexual exploitation is probably easier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, there's much more to come on Good Afternoon Britain. Do stay with us. We'll be looking more, of course, into the grooming gang scandal, but also the World Health Organization advises wearing face masks and staying at home.
Oh dear.
Could the new HMPV virus be the new COVID?
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
With the dawn of the new year come new opportunities for the stage. Stefan Kyriazis joins us now to share how he started 2025.
We've got Sigourney Weaver, Hollywood star, coming in as Prospero in The Tempest. It's an experience. Sigourney Weaver has got this kind of patrician presence. She's always on stage, sat watching or stalking the area, but she doesn't quite get the Shakespearean rhythms for me. We've got more trauma for you, and we've got a little clip to run first. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I don't know how people's Christmases were with their families, but this is a very unhappy family, so you can feel good about your family, whatever they're like. This is Tennessee Williams' deeply unhappy story of a family in sort of plantation south. The patriarch, Big Daddy, is dying, although he doesn't know it yet. Everyone is manoeuvring around him. Everyone is pretty unpleasant, pretty unhappy. It's all based on nobody really telling the truth. Everyone's suppressing things.
Got one more thing for us?
We do, and suddenly sunshine, life, joy. It's Nutcracker, but in Havana. Which is from Carlos Acosta. It's a very Cuban feel. And again, we've got a lovely little clip to cheer us all up.
Good.
That. There was no Christmas when he was growing up. Castro had banned it all. So we've got this setting in Cuba, and instead of magicians, you've got the uncle coming back from Miami, loads of presents. It's just full of joy, and you've got a reworked music. I love the Tchaikovsky score. to death. But this one has been added, so you've got kind of Caribbean flutes and lutes and guitars. Huge exuberance, colourful, bright.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 25 minutes past 1, and there's much more coming up on what is a packed show for you today. But first, we're taking you live to Los Angeles, where we can see live pictures of the wildfires.
Yes, they are very much out of control. 30,000 people have been forced to evacuate their homes. The strong, dry winds are expected to get worse over the next day. We know there's been a huge amount of destruction so far. This is, of course, an area that's home to millions of people, but also thousands of celebrities and well-known people too, who've been forced to essentially pick up everything and run.
Yeah, it is slightly unfortunate that we pay more attention to things like this when it is affecting the wealthiest and most famous people in the world. But of course, naturally, we do. But it is really shocking to see these fires just grow and grow and grow.
Yes, well, in other news, being told to wear face masks and stay at home. Yes, and no, you're not watching a broadcast from 5 years ago. This is brand new guidance from the World Health Organization because HMPV cases are surging in China, and this has prompted fears of a possible worldwide outbreak.
Well, is this a cause for concern, or is this all just hypochondriac nonsense? Well, joining us now is GP and medical writer Dr. Renee Honderkamp. Thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. How scared should we be?
Not at all, I would say. So I know you expect me to say that, but I've had a look at the figures today. So this is a virus, HMPV, that's actually been around for years, at least 15 years. We actually see it every year. It's like a cold. It's spread by coughing and sneezing. It causes respiratory-like symptoms. And like all of these respiratory diseases, it is more dangerous to those who have other health conditions or are very elderly and possibly younger. So the same warnings that we would give to this, we would give to anything, be that flu, be it COVID, although there's not much COVID around now, RSV and all of the other viruses. Viruses like the cold, we've had a cold snap, so things are going to surge. So I had a look at the figures, and actually, although there is a very, very slight increase in the number of these cases in the UK, it's 4.53%. We actually had 4.13% at the same time last year. So it is marginal. It's something that's always here, and you would have never known about it if the World Health Organization hadn't become hysterical about it. And
well, Renee, Renee, I just want to point out that we're currently looking at scenes from hospitals and health clinics and things in China, because the media have made a link between the rise of this virus and the rise of it in China, and that the outbreak in China may well lead to more cases around the world. Why have they made that link?
Well, you know, you mustn't forget, Emily, that when COVID started, we saw scenes coming from China where people were just dropping down dead in the street with no warning at all. Those videos can never be found now. No data or information that comes out of China can ever be trusted. So I would, you know, who knows what this is? Who knows where this footage is from? Who knows how old it is? I just don't think, when we look at the figures that we have now, which are almost the same as last year and the year before, there's anything to panic about. The other thing to think is that we have a much bigger problem with flu at the moment. Flu levels are at about 14.5%, so 4 to 5 times higher. So, you know, flu is dangerous to people who are elderly and have other health conditions. You know, these respiratory viruses can be dangerous. But is this going to be the next pandemic? Well, I don't have a crystal ball. I can never say never. But I would say that common things are common. This is like a common cold, and we must treat it like that. We must be careful, sneeze into a tissue and throw it away, wash our hands all of the time. If you are feeling really grotty and you have a bad cold, don't go to a party or on the tube and spread it. Just be sensible. I don't advocate for masks because all of the evidence says that these viruses are much smaller than the holes in the masks, and that masks do nothing but pollute the environment and make people scared of you.
It's interesting, though, to see, as we were, that footage in China. It does sort of ring back to, I can't quite believe it was 5 years ago. In March this year will be the 5th anniversary of the Prime Minister sitting down at that desk in Downing Street saying, stay at home, don't see your friends. If your friends ask you to see them, you should say no. It's easy to see sort of how all of this evocative imagery is reminding us all of that moment in time.
Oh, totally. I agree totally, Tom. And that's what it's designed to do. All of this stuff is designed to make us scared. Do you know what we should do? We should learn the lessons from COVID. And we now know that the social isolation, the removal of people's freedoms, children being off school was much more damaging for them than being sensible and acting like you should when you get a cold.
You're going to come back on that, Tom?
I think there are two things there. Yes, absolutely. For some individuals, COVID was not an issue. But my goodness me, for the number of people that are vulnerable in this country, it could have been, had we not had some pretty severe social restrictions over that period. I mean, the NHS would have been on its knees. It would have collapsed.
OK, so as a doctor, we are not here to protect the NHS. The NHS is here to protect us. And what we did learn from COVID is that actually there was more harm done by cancers that went undiagnosed, by people staying away. They wanted to protect the NHS. Much, much more harm has been done. And if you look at countries around the world that did not have restrictions, there is actually very little evidence to say now that these restrictions of stopping people, like, you know, going out and socialising and doing all of those things did very much at all to stop COVID. A virus will do what a virus does. What it probably did do, Tom, is spread it down the road a little bit. It's like that bell curve, isn't it? If you squash it, it will just go to the ends. So,
and it was like the original argument from Boris Johnson, squash the sombrero, I think was the phrase. Because if you have all of the cases at one time, then there's no capacity in the health service to deal with the cancer screening or the broken legs or whatever else it might be. We will have to have more conversations like this in future. But my goodness me, I hope that what we saw 5 years ago was a once-in-a-century, once-in-a-millennium event. Dr. Renee Hondekamp, thanks so much for joining us and talking through that.
All I do know is the NHS is in a bit of a crisis at the moment, as it usually is during the winter with all this influenza and virus going around. But anyway, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up. Yes, remember these 6 adverts showing the burning of US dollars and euros? Well, it turns out they've been banned in London. We'll be speaking to London Assembly member Susan Hall after the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. Just after 1:30, the top story. Well, we now know that MPs are set to vote on Kemi Badenoch's call for a new and national inquiry into grooming gangs after she warned Sir Keir Starmer's refusal could fuel fears of a cover-up. In a clash at Prime Minister's questions earlier, the Conservative leader demanded to know if Sir Keir Starmer is confident that he fully understands the scale of rape gangs.
Let us have the truth. He won't listen to the victims who are calling for a national inquiry. He is making this all about a bill this afternoon. Later today, he will tell Labour MPs, including in Telford, Rochdale, Bristol, Derby, Aylesbury, Oldham, Bradford, Peterborough, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Ramsgate, tell all of these people to vote against a national inquiry into the gangs which have systematically gang raped children in their constituencies.
Well, Keir Starmer fired back, urging Kemi Badenoch to drop her call, arguing another inquiry would, he says, only delay action, with victims demanding progress rather than more investigations.
Not once in 8 years did she stand here and say what she's just said. Not once in 8 years. They didn't act on the recommendations. They want a national inquiry. We had a national inquiry, the J inquiry, the J report. 20 recommendations, not a single one implemented. Not a single one implemented.
The state of emergency is continuing in California as a massive wildfire has swept through Los Angeles, forcing thousands to flee the flames. Firefighters are continuing to battle fierce winds into the night that are turning homes into what can best be described as raging infernos. Over 30,000 residents have so far been evacuated, with more than 13,000 buildings in danger. The latest pictures show neighbourhoods engulfed in flames, people abandoning their cars and running for safety. Millions of Californians are now on high alert, and federal resources have been deployed to help contain that blaze. Here, meanwhile, the Metropolitan Police is now under investigation over its handling of allegations against the former Harrods boss, Mohammed Al-Fayed. Over 100 alleged victims, some as young as 13, have come forward, accusing him of decades of sexual abuse. The force is also looking into claims of corruption after reports that officers took bribes to shield Al-Fayed from those accusations. The police watchdog is overseeing the investigation and aims to uncover whether or not officers missed any crucial opportunities to act. And a body has been found in the search for two missing British hikers in Italy's Dolomites. 36-year-old Aziz Ziriat and Samuel Harris, 35 years old, were last heard from on the 1st of January, close to Lake Garda. Authorities confirmed that body was discovered buried under snow, and their search is now continuing, focused on two specific areas with around 30 rescuers braving tough conditions. We understand the families of both men have been informed about those developments and are now being supported as the investigation unfolds. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you in half an hour, and Tom and Emily straight back after this break.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome along to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Staying cold today for all of us, with a mix of sunny spells and wintry showers for many, but in the south the risk of some more prolonged wintry weather, and that's because an area of low pressure is sending some milder and wetter weather in from the Atlantic, and that's going to bump into the cold air that's resident across the UK, and we'll have a messy mixture of rain, sleet and snow for southern counties of England. So some places we'll just see rain, others will see sleet and snow, and some accumulations of snow possible at lower levels, a centimetre or two. That's enough to cause disruption in the south of England, but over hills 5 to 10 centimetres are possible, and that snow will continue into the evening as temperatures drop. Meanwhile, well, we've already seen some decent lying snow across the north and west of Scotland into much of Northern Ireland, and those snow showers will continue during the rest of Wednesday, interspersed by clear spells, and there'll be plenty of dry and clear weather for central and southern Scotland through the day. Northern England, the Midlands, much of Wales away from the south, as well as parts of East Anglia, seeing a lot of cloud developing through the afternoon, but otherwise mostly dry. And it's a cold night for all of us. In the south, we've got the system clearing away and with clear skies forming. Whether you've got the rain, sleet or snow through the day, we'll see ice patches forming. And elsewhere, where we've got those wintry showers continuing, certainly the risk of slippery surfaces first thing Thursday, because it will be a cold start to the day, widely -4, -5 Celsius, and in some places where we've got lying snow, minus double figures. Now, we start off Thursday with that cold air in place, but also with plenty of sunshine. And in fact, it's a mostly fine day, dry with long spells of crisp winter sunshine, still a cold wind blowing and still some wintry showers in the north and parts of the west.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Russell Holding. The M61 in Lancashire is partly blocked southbound for emergency repairs, causing delays between junctions 8 and 6 from Chorley to Horwich. On Merseyside, the A552 is closed each way along Borough Road in Birkenhead, off the A41 Chester Street after an accident causing delays. Buses replaced trains between Llandudno Junction and Blaenau Festiniog for emergency engineering works. A number of roads across parts of the north of England are closed because of snow, including a number of routes in the Peak District. In the West Midlands, the A435 is blocked by an accident on Haddon Way at Sparkbrook in Birmingham. In Essex, the A13 is partly blocked by an accident on the roundabout off junction 30 of the M25 at Thurrock, causing delays on approaches to there. And in Hampshire, the A27 is blocked eastbound by an accident off the M27 in Portsmouth. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 39 minutes past 1 and we're counting down until the start of that debate in the House of Commons. We're expecting a vote on an amendment brought by Kemi Badenoch, accepted by the Speaker within the last hour, that there will be this vote on whether or not Parliament should establish a grooming gang inquiry, specific and time-limited inquiry into the grooming gang scandal.
Yes, now Keir Starmer during PMQ said this is a wrecking amendment and it will bring down their entire schools and wellbeing bill. But Kemi Badenoch saying, why on earth would you not vote for this? And of course, Keir Starmer is whipping his Labour MPs to all vote against this amendment. So how does that look?
Well,
optics-wise.
Absolutely. We're going to keep an eye on this story throughout the course of the show. We're keeping an eye on the debate as it progresses. But in the meantime, 6 adverts showing the burning of US dollars and euros have now been banned across London transport.
Yes, the adverts were for the Islamic investment platform Wahed and appeared on Transport for London tubes and buses, but they've now been withdrawn after a regulator warned they were likely to cause offence. Now, this is a story that GB News brought forward and exposed because quite a lot of people were quite concerned about the potential message behind this and who the man exactly is.
Well, someone who commented at the time, of course, was the member of the London Assembly, Susan Hall. Delighted to be rejoined by Susan now. A few months on from our last conversation on this subject, Susan. Are you pleased that the Mayor's taken action?
Well, it's about time. In October, as you know, I complained about it, but I actually complained about the chap Mufti meant that actually did it because of his comments about homosexuals, as you'll remember, on a YouTube video in 2013. Menk actually called homosexuals worse than animals and filthy. I mean, how outrageous. So on that basis, I wanted the whole thing removed. They shouldn't have, in my view, shouldn't have had him on advertising at all. So actually, it's been banned for a different reason, but that was my reasoning in October.
Yeah, it's quite strange, isn't it? Because originally, I believe, when we and others went to TfL for a statement, they said, you know, it met the requirements, it met the regulations of Transport for London and the advertising. Something's clearly changed, hasn't it, Susan?
Well, isn't it ridiculous? I mean, we knew in October it was wrong for the reasons I've just said. It just shows that TfL's advertising parameters are completely wrong. I don't know why we're wasting time and money on it, because they've got this so wrong. Anybody looking at it knew it was wrong. You and I knew it was wrong. But anyway, so now they've been told to take them down, I believe.
Yes, I think it is particularly concerning seeing sort of what looks almost like an explosion on a tube advert. But of course, the reason why they've been taken down seems really curious to me, Susan. TfL saying that this could be offensive to Americans and Europeans because it's their money being burnt. I'm not sure that's an angle that any of us looked at the last time we talked about this.
No. His comments about homosexuals is what I find so offensive. I can't get beyond that, quite frankly. Burning money, yeah, it's not good. But the chap they've put up there to do it, I mean, unbelievably offensive. And I'm not offended by very much at all. But to actually come out with comments like that, in fact, very few things offend me. But I think to actually use somebody like that advertising that has a view on homosexuality
Yeah, I don't know. I think the burning of the money, that did actually offend me, or at least raise my eyebrows when I saw it on the tube, because it seems a very aggressive act, and we see the burning of flags and things like this, and it reminded me of that. Very aggressive.
Yeah, good point, Emily. Good point. I'm still seething over the original reasons for not having them. But yes, you have got a good point. But then some of the adverts on TfL, all around the massive controversy over the death, people, going for killing themselves when all of that was rife. There were all sorts of adverts on the underground about the benefits, I think, to suicide, or I've forgotten the term they used at the time.
Assisted suicide or assisted dying is some. But Susan, I suppose there is an argument here that has TfL made a rod for its own back, because it is very famous for banning such asinine things as pictures of hummus or cream to go with strawberries at Wimbledon, or cake, or all of these things are now banned. Hot dogs, all banned on TfL. And because they ban such tame things as that, they really make a rod for their own back when it comes to making free speech arguments for anything else.
Isn't it ridiculous? Somebody in one advert had a hot dog in his hand. He had to replace it with a cucumber. I mean, it's so ridiculous as to be unbelievable. No, I'd allow most things up there, to be honest with you. And if you look, I mean, I obviously have got massive train journeys to get down to City Hall. If you look in the trains, there's so many advertising spaces empty. TfL should be making money out of that, not etc.
I must say, when you're reporting on the news that a 14-year-old has been stabbed to death on a bus in broad daylight in Woolwich, it does sort of put these types of things into perspective, making sure there's no junk food advertisements, of which the junk food definition is so broad that it encompasses a hot dog and hummus. But there we are. That's the state of play. Susan Hall, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this one. Member of the London Assembly, of course.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more to come. Don't go anywhere. MPs are due to vote on Kemi Badenoch's call for a national inquiry into grooming gangs. This after she warned Sir Keir Starmer's refusal to back it could fuel concerns of a cover-up. We're looking at that and also the latest from Los Angeles after this.
Yes, these are pictures we can bring you of burning buildings in Los Angeles. It's still dark. 30,000 people have been forced to flee. Firefighters admit they will severely struggle to stop the flames.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Figures released by the National Child Measurement Programme in 2024 found that almost 1 in 10 children was obese in the first year of school. Children living in deprived areas are twice as likely to be overweight as those in more affluent parts. Organisations like the Prepped Foundation are educating youngsters about healthy eating by giving them the skills to create balanced meals. TV chef James Golding has joined the foundation as the head of food education, and he joins me now to talk about the work. James, lovely to see you here.
Good to see you too. So Prepped used to be Table Talk Foundation, and it's now obviously Prep for Life, Prep for Knowledge. It's basically a charity to encourage kids to have a better understanding of food, but at the same time enjoy cooking and hopefully make better food choices in their life, as well as perhaps share the information we give them with their families.
Do you see them developing an understanding of the difference between healthy and unhealthy food?
Yes, I think that kids tend to sort of be taught a lot of this in school, but being able to actually ask questions to a chef and be able to cook with produce which they know is one, that is going to be tasty because they've tasted it, but two, open their eyes to food that they may not have tried before. I think that I think a lot of kids say they don't want to try stuff because they don't like the way it looks, but the way that we produce our sessions, we encourage the kids to try, and I think it really does open their eyes. It's very easy, I think, currently to be able to make easier choices, say fast food choices or that type of thing, and it's obviously giving people the ability to make the right choices, but also the skills to be able to do it. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed and something that really needs to be pushed, and that's what we're doing as a charity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just coming up to 10 to 2. And Liverpool fans, how would you feel about the richest man in the world taking over your football club?
Well, Elon Musk's dad, Errol, has been speaking about his Scouse connections. He says his billionaire son wants to build on close connections to the city and actually go ahead and buy the club.
Well, his grandmother was, of course, from Liverpool, and many of his relatives grew up with members of the Beatles, so we're told.
Well, joining us now from Liverpool is our reporter, Sophie Reaper. Sophie, so what do the locals in Liverpool make of it all?
Well, I think they're all a bit confused, Tom and Emily, to be honest. I mean, over the past few years, we've seen rather a vogue in celebrities and influential figures becoming involved in our football teams, haven't we? Perhaps the most recognisable of that, Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds purchasing Wrexham Football Club. But what do the people of Liverpool make of Elon Musk potentially buying their club? That's after his father yesterday speaking out and saying that he's not necessarily considering it, but that he would love to do so. And that is because of the family's heritage here in the city of Liverpool. Elon's grandmother, Cora, reportedly born here, but not just reportedly in the city of Liverpool, but allegedly here on this very street. Now, Elon himself commented on this yesterday. He tweeted about his grandmother bringing himself into the conversation currently ongoing about the grooming scandal here in the UK. He tweeted to say that Cora was strict, but also kind, and he could always count on her. He said, "My nana was one of the poor working class girls with no one to protect her who might have been abducted in present day Britain." Now, of course, it's become a very contentious subject, Elon Musk involving himself in this conversation. So we've been here on this street this morning where Elon's grandmother reportedly was born and raised, asking the people of this street what they think. We, in fact, actually managed to speak to the person who now lives in the house itself where she was supposedly born and raised. And we spoke to him about his thoughts about Elon's grandmother and him reportedly potentially buying Liverpool FC. Here's what he had to say.
Absolute nonsense, really. I mean, I've never known such an event. I'm born and bred in Liverpool, in the Dingle in Toxteth. I've never heard the like, really, what's been in the press about the grooming of women and young girls. And round here now, nonsense. Absolutely no sign of it. Whatever his agenda is, it's nothing to do with what's going on here.
And do you think that could be seen as quite offensive of the people of Liverpool?
Yes, of course.
And I just want to ask you quickly, there's obviously also been reports that he's considering buying Liverpool FC. What do you think of that? Do you think that would be good for the club or not?
No, I'm not even sure he likes football or such. No.
Are you a Liverpool fan?
Yep, sort of. On their good days.
But so you wouldn't welcome Elon Musk at Liverpool?
Not necessarily, no. I wouldn't like his interference at all, really, in our politics, in our sport. No, stay away.
strong words there right at the end, that he should stay away from our sports and he should stay away from our politics. And when we've been speaking to people here on the streets in Liverpool this morning, where Elon's grandmother supposedly was born and raised, that is a feeling that seems to have been mirrored. Most people we've spoken to today feel that Elon Musk shouldn't be involving himself in our politics and that they would not welcome him joining Liverpool FC, their beloved football club here in this city.
That's brilliant, Sophie. Hearing from the man who now lives in the old Musk house. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Sophie Reaper, there live from Liverpool with that report. Yeah. He didn't seem very impressed, did he, by the idea that Musk could come in and buy up everything.
But it's so interesting, isn't it? There are hundreds of millions of people around the world, in America, in Australia, in South Africa, Canada, New Zealand, lots of countries who have British heritage.
Yeah, they love it.
Who I mean, apparently Elon Musk grew up with his English grandmother and had great respect for her. I mean, it's the same is true of Donald Trump, of course, with his Scottish grandmother, or Scottish mother, I should say. I mean, is it
You're
wrong?
Feeling the love, aren't you?
Is it wrong for people to feel that their sort of ancestral homeland matters?
Yeah, well, I like the fact that people from all over the world love Britain and care about Britain so deeply as to constantly tweet about us, which is rather nice.
The mother country.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, but lots more coming up. Yes, MPs are now going to vote on Kemi Badenoch's call for a national inquiry. Here are live pictures from the House of Commons. Kemi Badenoch warned that Sir Keir Starmer's refusal to back this amendment would fuel concerns about a cover-up.
Well, that's all to come, keeping our eyes closely on the Commons. But first, let's take a look at the weather forecast.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there. It's another cold afternoon and evening out there with a lot of fine weather actually, but also some sleet and snow. There'll be further showers of sleet and snow into the north and northwest of the UK, whilst this area of low pressure brings a more persistent area of rain, sleet and snow into southern counties of England and South Wales. Accumulations will be patchy from this because of the mix of rain, sleet and snow, but a centimetre or two at lower levels is possible, enough to cause disruption in this busy part of the country, and also over higher parts, 5 to 10 centimetres, so Dartmoor and Exmoor. Once that clears away, widely we're going to see frost and ice with temperatures of -3, -5 Celsius across most of the UK, but as low as the minus double digits for snow-covered parts of northern Britain. Now, for southern parts of the UK, we start off with some icy patches following the wet weather on Wednesday. And Thursday will be a very cold start to the day widely across the country. Further sleet and snow showers into Northern Ireland, North Wales, as well as northern Scotland. A further build-up of snow over higher parts of northern Scotland in particular during Thursday, as well as, again, some icy patches around. It stays cold throughout Thursday morning, but for many it's a dry and bright, crisp winter's day. Plenty of sunshine through central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, eastern and southern England. Patchy cloud into Wales, northwest England, northern Scotland and Northern Ireland with some showers around. But for the vast majority it stays dry, albeit with a continuing cold feel. Temperatures struggling to get to 1 to 3 Celsius. And that leads on to Thursday night, which will be another very cold night, widely starry skies and plummeting temperatures. We start off Friday with that cold in place, with another band of rain, sleet and snow turning up from the west before it turns much milder over the weekend.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£50,000 in tax-free cash is like having over £4,000 each month to play with for a whole year. And it could be yours in the biggest Great British giveaway so far. That could be a holiday each month, your mortgage covered, or just the ability to send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Mr. Motivator, he joins us now. Mr. Motivator, a very happy new year to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. There you are, bright and early. So how are things? How can we all kick ourselves into shape?
By the end of January, most people have thrown their New Year's resolution out the window. I think what's important is that we make a change for life and we we set ourselves small goals. And as we achieve those goals, then we reward ourselves. And in other words, you want to run 10K, you don't immediately get up and go run 10K, do you? You run between 2 lampposts and walk between 20. If you're not into running, don't choose running. If you're into dancing, that's great. If you're into any kind of movement, that is the way to keep yourself active, healthy, and also maintain your independence.
So, Derek, is the point that you keep it manageable and small enough that it's achievable?
Why don't we just find 4 exercises that you do for 1 minute each exercise, and you do that 4 times a day? Achievable, isn't it? That's only 4 minutes of exercise. And I guarantee at the end of the day, you'd have done 12 minutes, which is like your daily dozen. So there's your goal. I want to do a daily dozen of exercise lasting a minute each, right? And the first thing you could be doing is getting up from your chair, right? The moment you stand up, you incorporate so many muscles in your legs, right, that you're going to feel good, yes? So,
right, go on then. Get up off your chair, Adam. Show me how it's done.
Easy, come on.
Easy, yeah. Look at
no
that.
hand. The next thing I want you to do is to reach up real high. And if you bring it down, up
I'll
and
do
down.
that one.
Yeah.
For a minute, palms facing.
Oh, for a minute?
You're not flying a minute. That's better.
There we go.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Wednesday, the 8th of January. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Kemi Badenoch's call for the government to establish a national inquiry into grooming gangs will be put to a Commons vote tonight. Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle has decided. We're live in Westminster throughout the show. Live pictures here of the House of Commons.
Yes, indeed. And elsewhere, Los Angeles is on fire. Firefighters say they cannot contain the flames as devastating wildfires force some 30,000 residents to flee for their lives. We're live on the ground as the unprecedented disaster shows no signs of slowing down.
Wear face masks and stay at home. No, you're not listening to a broadcast from 5 years ago. This is brand new guidance from the World Health Organization as HMPV cases surge in China and prompt fears of a possible worldwide outbreak. Is this cause for concern or just media hype?
And do you remember those ads that appeared all over London? Well, Sir Sadiq Khan has been forced to remove a series of billboards featuring a controversial Islamic preacher. This was first exposed by GB News.
Well, let's go straight to our political editor, Christopher Hope, to tell us what is going on in Westminster today. Chris, the Speaker's selected this amendment.
Yeah, we're going up for this amendment later on today, Tom and Emily. It's a big moment, I think, when MPs will have to vote for or against a national public inquiry into the rape gang scandal, which we've been doing so much to talk about and highlight on GB News. It's unlikely to go through. The Labour number 10 has confirmed to me that Labour MPs will be whipped to vote against it. So there might be the odd individual rebel against that, and they'll be in tomorrow's papers on GB News tonight. We're talking about them a bit. But lots of Labour MPs will vote against this national grooming inquiry. That could cause difficulties when it comes to election time. The Tories will highlight that and say, well, this individual refused to agree to a national inquiry. Now, of course, Labour says to us that there's no need for one. The Baroness J report that came out in 2022 was one, even though none of the 20 recommendations have yet been implemented, and only 4 of them have been taken forward as things stand by the Labour government, and there's no deadline on bringing them forward. So all those things mean it's a bit of a political stooshy. Kemi Badenoch has confirmed just now, her team have confirmed that she has not met any of the grooming victims. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, did meet some today, and that's why Sir Keir Starmer told MPs earlier that there's a mixed view on whether there needs to be a national inquiry. But by not meeting these victims, I think, by Kemi Badenoch, that will fuel the flames that critics say she's jumping on the bandwagon, as she was accused of doing so by Keir Starmer in Prime Minister's questions. In 8 years, it wasn't raised by Kemi Badenoch, and that's probably the weakness in her argument in calling for this national inquiry, is that she's been pretty silent on it until it became a big issue under Elon Musk.
OK, well, Christopher Hope, thank you very much indeed for that update. We'll check in with you later. But before our next discussion, let's get the headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. It's just gone 2 o'clock. The top story this hour. MPs are set to vote on Kemi Badenoch's call for a new national inquiry into grooming gangs after she warned Sir Keir Starmer's refusal could fuel fears of a cover-up. In a clash earlier at Prime Minister's questions, the Conservative leader demanded to know if Sir Keir Starmer is confident we fully understand the scale of rape gangs.
Let us have the truth. He won't listen to the victims who are calling for a national inquiry. He is making this all about a bill this afternoon. Later today, he will tell Labour MPs, including in Telford, Rochdale, Bristol, Derby, Aylesbury, Oldham, Bradford, Peterborough, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Ramsgate, tell all of these people to vote against a national inquiry into the gangs which have systematically gang raped children in their constituencies.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer fired back, urging Kemi Badenoch to drop her call for another inquiry, arguing it would only delay action, with victims demanding progress rather than more investigations.
Not once in 8 years did she stand here and say what she's just said. Not once in 8 years. They didn't act on the recommendations. They want a national inquiry. We had a national inquiry, the J inquiry, the J report. 20 recommendations. Not a single one implemented. Not a single one implemented.
Turning now to the latest developments in the United States, where 3 massive wildfires are tearing through the suburbs of Los Angeles in California. More than 1,400 firefighters are battling the flames there. The fires, fuelled by dry weather and strong winds, are pushing dangerously close to homes, forcing now tens of thousands of residents to flee. Authorities also say at this stage there is no possibility of controlling the fires. These latest pictures show buildings collapsing and smoke billowing over residential areas, as people have also been seen abandoning their cars and running for safety. Millions of Californians are now on high alert, and the White House has deployed federal resources to help contain the blazes. Tributes here are pouring in for a 14-year-old, Kalen Bokassa, who was fatally stabbed on a bus in southeast London on Tuesday afternoon. His mother, Mary Bokassa, says that he was kind, musical and talented at drawing, with a love for football. Kellyan was attacked on a double-decker bus in Woolwich just after 2:30 p.m. Despite efforts from police, paramedics and the London Air Ambulance, he sadly died shortly after the attack. Detectives say they're now working at pace to find those responsible, but no arrests have been made so far. In Italy, a body has been found in the search for 2 missing British hikers in the Dolomite Mountains. 36-year-old Aziz Ziriat and Samuel Harris, 35 years old, were last heard from on the 1st of January close to Lake Garda. Authorities confirmed the body was discovered buried under snow, and the search is now focused on 2 specific areas with around 30 rescuers braving tough conditions there. The families of both men have been informed and are now being supported as the investigation continues. In other news, new claims have surfaced about war crimes allegedly committed by the SAS in Afghanistan. A whistleblower has told a public inquiry that a rogue unit within the SAS deliberately targeted Afghan civilians, including, they claim, children, as part of a kill policy. Former senior officers have backed up those accusations, describing the SAS as operating with a golden pass to cover up murder and misconduct. Documents revealed this week reveal intense conflict between SAS and Afghan forces, with partners in Afghanistan withdrawing support over the killings. The inquiry, which is focused on controversial night raids between 2010 and 2013, is currently continuing behind closed doors. The NHS is urging patients to attend A&E alone as rising flu cases push emergency departments to breaking point. York and Scarborough hospitals are among those asking for public support. One patient reportedly waited 50 hours for a bed, with frontline staff describing the system as overwhelmed. That comes as flu cases in hospitals across England have now surged to 5,000 a day. And weather news, Britain is bracing for a deep freeze this week as temperatures are set to plunge as low as -15 degrees, the coldest of the winter so far. The Met Office has issued fresh snow and ice warnings for northern Scotland, Northern Ireland, and sub-zero conditions expected across the rest of the country. The UK Health Security Agency is also warning of rising health risks. Meanwhile, flood alerts remain in place though conditions are still drier after days of heavy rain. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Tom and Emily.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 2. Now, should there be a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal? That's the question that will be put to MPs this afternoon as the Speaker selects a Conservative amendment to hold a vote on the issue.
However, speaking at Prime Minister's questions a little earlier, Sir Keir Starmer reiterated his view that there should not be a national inquiry. He says that now is the time for action rather than further investigations.
Well, two individuals who will be voting on that motion later today join us now in the studio. Delighted to be joined by the Shadow Policing and Crime Minister, Matt Vickers, and the Labour MP for Dover and Deal, Mike Tapp. Mike, we're going to start with you. It was a testy exchange between Kemi Badenoch and Sir Keir Starmer, but to some extent, it was also a thoughtful one, a reasoned one, and it took its time. Why do you think that your party leader is whipping you today to vote against this inquiry?
Well, there's two reasons. The first is that we've had an inquiry that ended in 2022. The recommendations have been laid out, which we need to implement going forward. We've also got local inquiries ongoing. Oldham are starting one as we speak, which we fully support. The second reason is we're not just voting on an amendment. If that amendment were to go through, the whole bill would collapse. And within that bill, which is really important, are measures to protect children. So we're taking action rather than looking at more inquiries.
Now, you'll know as well that a lot of the grooming gang scandals that have taken place around the country were in Labour areas or Labour-controlled areas with Labour councils. A lot of people are getting in touch saying, is the reason Keir Starmer is so adamant that we don't need a national inquiry on this because he's worried that potentially some Labour politicians may be implicated?
Absolutely not, because we've had local inquiries in Rotherham, in Telford, in Greater Manchester, which included Oldham, and we're having another. And we've got to remember that the Conservatives agreed with that approach. They didn't call for a national further inquiry, and they actually agreed that it should be local inquiries.
But they've changed their tune.
They have changed their tune.
Based on new evidence.
The question, there is no new evidence. There's just Elon Musk's tweet. That's not a good enough reason.
Hang on. That does a massive disservice to the fantastic investigatory work that our Charlie Peters national report has been doing for years now.
So you've got to remember that Professor Jay, who's the professional who's conducted this report, has said that there's no need for a national inquiry. So that's what the professionals are saying. Whilst at the same time, the police, the National Crime Agency, are getting on with a job in taking out these vile paedophiles and criminals. And in Parliament, we're legislating to protect children today. And that's why we're voting through this bill. And it's an absolute farce that the Conservatives have voted down.
Though, we just find out that one of the leaders of a rape gang, grooming gang in Rochdale, who was supposed to be deported about 10 years ago, is just wandering around Rochdale like nothing's happened. He's working for a delivery service, and, you know, he potentially could deliver a pizza to one of his victims.
And we've increased foreign offender deportations by 19% since we came to government. So this is what we've inherited, this lack of deportations, and I'm sure we'll be looking at this one too.
OK, we're going to turn to Matt Vickers now, because, Matt, it's a fair point from the Labour Party, is it not, that this amendment to be voted on today would collapse the entire schools bill. Now, there might be good reasons why you, as a Conservative, want to collapse the schools bill, because you don't like the provisions that are going to roll back academies and all the rest of it. But isn't it a bit disingenuous to say that's not also what you're playing here?
I think there are big issues with the schools bill generally. When you look at, you know, in the last few years, we've gone from 68% of schools being good or outstanding to 90%. We've climbed the league tables on maths. We've got the best readers in the Western world, and most people would agree that part of that has been down to the work of academies and the role of academies in driving educational standards.
Is this inquiry amendment actually about collapsing the schools bill?
This inquiry amendment, do you know what? If you go down the street now and speak to members of the public, they'll tell you there should be an inquiry. The greatest number of them. They've seen the horrific things that have taken place, the vile, disgusting acts. We've learnt more about it because of the work that Charlie Peters has done. The CSE inquiry that went on however many years ago looked at 6 towns. It didn't actually look home in on grooming gangs and some of these incidents. We've now got a council calling for this to be brought forward. They want to see a national inquiry. We've got the public want to see a national inquiry. We've learnt more about the situation, and actually, why shouldn't we have the inquiry is the top and bottom of it. There's 2 reasons beyond that why we actually need to really get under the bonnet and look at what's gone on, because you either think that because of cultural sensitivities and people's worry of offending people haven't dealt with it in the way they should, or you look at what Simon Danczuk said, where he tells you that the chair of the Labour Party told him not to talk about the ethnicity of these people, to brush it under the carpet, to hide it away. We need to get to the bottom of this. There are victims out there who need answers, and we need to make sure it can never happen on the streets of this country ever again.
An inquiry was commissioned by Theresa May when she was Home Secretary in 2014. It lasted 7 years. It reported in 2022. Was Theresa May wrong in the terms of that inquiry that she set, that, of course, were much broader than the grooming gang scandal that we started to know about by that time? She included the Catholic Church, Jimmy Savile, the Operation U-Tree stuff that was going on at the time. Was that inquiry too broad in its scope? And if so, you still had 2 years from 2022 to 2024 in which you could have launched another one.
I think it served its purpose. It was a wider purpose, 2 different purposes. One is about dealing with the broader issue of child sexual exploitation. This is now about grooming gangs. We've got a list of 50 towns where it's gone. Middlesbrough, around the corner from me. I want the answers. I want to know what's gone on to young people in that part of the world. I want to know that all the agencies did what they should be doing, and I want to know who failed, and I want them held to account. And that's what many of these victims want. So I think it's 2 very different things. We saw there has been work done on it. We saw the Grooming Gangs Task Force, 550 arrests, 4,000 people protected in a way they weren't previously. There has been work going in this space. Now is the time. Now is the time that the council are putting forward and requesting it officially. Now is the time the public want it. Now is the time that Charlie Peters has done this excellent reporting work and brought to light many of these incidents. People want answers.
Now, sticking on this, Jess Phillips, yesterday, accused Elon Musk of putting her safety at risk after he accused her of being a rape genocide apologist on X. Now, here is a little bit of what Miss Phillips said in an interview yesterday.
In this spotlight like this, and the intimation of what Elon Musk is, the disinformation, as I believe the Prime Minister referred to it as, has put out about me, it's endangering.
Well, some, however, have accused the Safeguarding Minister of hypocrisy after she previously defended Labour Party attack ads against Rishi Sunak.
And I'm fine with the advert. I would have gladly defended it, but I'd done the morning round the day before, and so I'd got up at 5 a.m.
So just to remind you, that particular attack ad explicitly accused the then Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of not supporting the imprisonment of people convicted of sexually assaulting children. So is she guilty of hypocrisy here? Mike?
I don't think so. You know, that's in the cut and thrust of a general election, and there was some weight to that. And actually, if you look at the quite disgusting tweets coming out of Elon Musk's platform, it goes beyond the line. And, a genocide rapist is only going to put her in danger. And we've seen that already, I believe, with an
But is that not similar to what she was accusing Rishi Sunak, or at least defending with that attack ad?
Well, look, I mean, Jess Phillips didn't create that advert, and she said that, in general, she wasn't against it at the time, and it was in the cut and thrust of a general election campaign.
She said it didn't go far enough. This was an advert, to be clear, that asked, do you think rapists and paedophiles should go to prison? Rishi Sunak doesn't. I mean, it was a distasteful advert.
I think one of the issues was looking at some of the legislations that were voted down at that time. I'd have to look back through it, and that's where that came from.
I think it was the Sentencing Council, which is a non-parliamentary body.
And when you look at what Elon Musk is saying, it's completely baseless. There's nothing there to justify what he said about Jess Phillips. In fact, she's quite the opposite. She's been working really hard to protect women, violence against women and girls and children, and that will continue. And I think, for me, it's about, as a backbench MP, ensuring that we are putting the legislation through that does protect children. And that's why today is so important, because within that bill, there are parts that will protect children.
It's
so
just
it must go through
unfortunate
today.
because Jess Phillips did say in one of the interviews, of which there were 4, with all of the other establishment broadcasters, Channel 4, BBC Newsnight, Sky News and ITV, all dropping sort of simultaneously, all, in my opinion, showing Jess Phillips to be one of the victims in all of this. Yes, she did defend her record on helping children who have experienced exploitation and women also who have experienced exploitation. Of course she did. But it was quite interesting that all dropped at exactly the same time. Matt?
Well, do you know what? I think anything that endangers MPs in this sort of way is terrible. It's got to be called out. There is risk to this job. Social media adds to those risks. But I think I'd probably draw more if this tweet that's emerged from Jess Phillips, where she talks about collaring George Galloway, calling him a rape apologist, and ticking it off her bucket list. That's emerged in the last few hours. I've seen the tweet. I think it's horrendous. But as MPs, we probably have to take a higher tone in the way that we speak to people on social media. It's just a horrible downward spiral on the tone of politics.
Do you think that the Conservative Party risks getting too into bed with a very particularly brash American style of politics, an attack ad style of politics that perhaps is much more common the other side of the Atlantic? This sort of really brazen language from people like Elon Musk, who at the same breath will retweet people like Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick. Does the Conservative Party have a reputational issue that it's heading towards there?
I think this is a really contentious subject. I think it's a subject that gets people really fired up because they see the evils and the wrongs that have gone on. They want it called out. They want to see it, the light shone on it. They want to see that inquiry. They're really hot under the collar about that. And I think that brings out appropriate language that, people
Do you think the language that Elon Musk has used is appropriate?
I don't, but I think that's for Elon Musk, who isn't a member of the Conservative Party, just for the record. And you know what? He's on Twitter to get lots of people tweeting, engaging that platform, saying horrible things, and feeding his own algorithm in his own business.
I just think Jess Phillips, in one of the interviews, talked about how child sex exploitation and the treatment of women should not be used as a political football. But by not condemning those attack ads, I mean, they were treating violence against women as a political football. So the problem here is, it seems like everyone's going at it.
I mean, I can't speak for Jess Phillips. It might be worth asking those questions. But my view on this is that we need to dial the temperature down. It does no one any favours trying to create these sorts of divides with such a sensitive and important issue. And at the very centre of this is the protection of children. That's what matters to me. I've worked for the National Crime Agency in the past. I've met victims. I've arrested paedophiles. And we need to protect them and do what we can in Parliament to ensure that children have that full service from us as government. And that's why today's legislation is so important, because there are measures in there that will protect children, and why it pains me to see that political games are being played with this bit of legislation today, which should be going through.
Do you think that any of your colleagues this evening will break the whip, will stay away, or do you think the Labour Party is completely united on this issue?
I don't know, but it feels united. For me, it's the colleagues that I've spoken to about this, is it's about protecting children. And in order to do that, we need to get this through because that's what we owe them. And if the amendment were to go through, the whole bill would collapse, which is why I find it quite painful to see the Conservatives playing this game today, to be quite honest.
Final word to you, Matt Vickers.
People deserve answers. That inquiry has to go ahead. There are people out there, victims, who want answers. They want to know that this can never happen again. They want to know that the organisations and agencies who let them down are going to be held to account. They want to know that politicians, they want to believe in politicians, that they aren't doing things for the motivation of votes. It's got to be put to bed. We've got to have the answers. We've got to draw those people in and have that inquiry.
Well, Matt Vickers, Mike Tapp, Tory and Labour MPs both voting this evening, unless something goes horribly wrong in the short walk between this studio and Parliament. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Well, you never know. You
But that was perfect. It demonstrated the two sides of this particular debate. So there you go.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more to come. Indeed, across the pond, firefighters in Los Angeles say they cannot contain the flames. Devastating wildfires are forcing some 30,000 residents to flee for their lives. We're going to be live on the ground in LA in just a few moments' time.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
We've got a special treat for you because we can show you this lovely video of a lady running on a beach. So you're not missing much if you're listening on the radio. It is literally a woman in white writing on the beach, writing 2025.
Yes, because that's the year we're in now.
Is it?
Yes,
Wow.
and it's because Meghan Markle returned to Instagram yesterday.
Former world correspondent for The Sun, Charles Ray, joins us now. Are you inspired to remember the year, Charles?
Oh, Happy New Year to you too as well. I honestly haven't got a clue what she's doing now. You know, I would have thought we should have had the theme tune from Jaws as she was running down to the water there and everything else. They're being quite hypocritical here because they came off social media because they were getting unparalleled abuse. I don't condone at all. It is not right whatsoever. And they've spent the last few years complaining about social media.
We've seen her before with her lifestyle blog, haven't we? Before she met Prince Harry, she was running a successful blog. Do you think she wants to go back to doing that sort of thing?
I think it's possible that that's what she wants to do. I mean, I don't understand how these things work, okay? But all I know is that certain influencers earn an awful lot of money from Instagram and everything else. Now, they're talking about figures. I mean, whether this is true or not, I've something like £790,000 she could earn per post. You know, so it's quite incredible what she can possibly earn out of this. It's interesting, though, Stephen and Ellie, that she's actually switched off all the comments on this one.
I noticed that.
Clearly, she doesn't want to have anybody on there saying anything nasty or anything good about it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 26 minutes past 2, but it's a lot earlier in the state of California, where a state of emergency has now been declared amid the raging wildfires ravaging the countryside.
Yes, now about 30,000 people have been forced to evacuate their homes. The stronger, dry winds are expected to get worse over the next day.
Well, we're going to speak to our US correspondent, Steve Edgington, live from Washington, D.C. on this, because, Steve, this is becoming a huge issue across the pond.
That's right. These are massive fires raging across 3 areas of Los Angeles overnight. Tens of thousands of people have been evacuated. Fortunately, no casualties have been reported so far, although there have been some injuries. More than 1,400 firefighters are currently trying to tackle the blazes raging across areas of Los Angeles, particularly the area of the Pacific Palisades, where a lot of celebrities live. We've seen lots of celebrities being forced to evacuate from their homes. And I think we've seen over 100 miles per hour wind speed across Los Angeles overnight. So you get this really dry condition and extremely high wind speeds, and this has forced the fire to spread across 3 different areas of Los Angeles. And as you say, officials are saying it's going to get worse before it gets better. They expect the wind speeds to continue to be extremely high, perhaps even go higher than they've already been overnight. And there's been lots of evacuation orders. Tens of thousands of people are being told to leave their homes. Schools have been shut down today in Los Angeles. It's an incredibly concerning situation for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people across the city in Los Angeles. They haven't seen a fire like this in a very long time, perhaps even since the early 90s. And climate experts are saying this is quite a rare and significant event to actually be happening here. People have been blaming local politicians, asking how this could have possibly happened. The mayor of Los Angeles, when this fire broke out, was actually in Ghana. So there's been some criticism of her. She's currently flying back to Los Angeles to deal with this crisis. But certainly overnight, it's an absolute travesty. People are waking up on the West Coast this morning and seeing their homes completely destroyed in many cases. And again, one of the other crises they're facing in Los Angeles at the moment is many of the firefighters are saying they can't actually access water from the fire hydrants. They've ran out of water in many of these areas. So this is an utter disaster currently striking the city of Los Angeles.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Stephen Edgerton, for that overview. We're going to cross over to LA now and speak to PR consultant and publicist Cheryl Kagan. Cheryl, this must be a scary time for people in LA.
Looks like the apocalypse. It's terrible. There have been over 30,000 people evacuated, and over 10,000 homes are being threatened at this point, including 13,000 structures. It's been over 24 hours, and it should take another couple of days because the winds have gone from 40 to 98 miles an hour. It started as a small spark in a canyon, and immediately, because of the winds, the dry conditions, no rain, it's just burst into a gigantic inferno throughout Pacific Palisades and 2 other areas. So it's threatening homes from the historic Sunset Boulevard, Pacific Palisades, down to the Pacific Ocean, where multi-million-dollar homes have been destroyed, looking out at the Pacific Ocean. Cars were abandoned in the middle of the road, so fire trucks could make their way to battle these flames, which is almost impossible at this point. Over 3,000 acres have been burned. Planes could not drop water due to the high winds. Our California Governor, Gavin Newsom, is in Los Angeles currently working with fire and police. We've had several celebrities who have been talking about this as well. Eugene Levy is the honorary mayor of Pacific Palisades, and he left immediately when he saw the heavy black smoke near his home. Academy Award nominee James Woods was taking video near his home and thanked the police officers in the fire department and then immediately evacuated. Actor Steve Guttenberg warned friends and neighbors to get out as quickly as possible. Reality stars Spencer Pratt and Heidi Montag lost their home. It was completely destroyed. And some of the celebrities who reside in Pacific Palisades include Tom Hanks, Rita Wilson, Ben Affleck, Reese Witherspoon, Miles Teller, and Adam Sandler. We've had several movie premieres canceled, including Robbie Williams' Better Man, The Wolf Man, and Prime Video's Unstoppable, starring Jennifer Lopez.
I mean, Cheryl, it's hard to
frightening.
It's hard here sitting in London to imagine the scale and devastation of this. Do you know anyone who's been directly impacted by the fires? I can't imagine what it's like to know that your home is going to be burnt down to a crisp.
Yes, actually, we do know several people whose homes have been totally destroyed, and evacuation centers have been set up for people to get out of the area. There were a couple who tried to stay and, take care of their homes, which is impossible at this point.
Well, Cheryl Kagan, thank you so much for bringing us the view there live from LA. Simply stunning footage we're getting through to us this afternoon here, this morning, of course, where you are. But thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Just the scale of it is extraordinary.
Thank you, Tom and Emily.
Thank you, Cheryl. Just the scale of it. I remember one time I was actually on holiday in France, and there were fires that were quite close to where I was staying, and the planes came over and they were dropping water, and quite a few acres were destroyed. But this, I can't imagine. So close to so many people, destroying so many buildings. Astonishing.
Yeah, well, we'll be live, of course, with any more updates that we get and some of that astonishing footage. If you're listening to the radio, it is worth looking for yourself, going to gbnews.com and seeing some of those pictures.
Well, we've got lots more coming up on today's show, so do stick around. A 14-year-old boy has been stabbed to death on a bus in south-east London. We're going to be live in Woolwich as a manhunt gets underway. But first, the headlines.
33 minutes past 2, the top story this hour. MPs are set to vote on Kemi Badenoch's call for a new national inquiry into grooming gangs after she warned Sir Keir Starmer's refusal could fuel fears of a cover-up. In a clash earlier at Prime Minister's questions, the Conservative leader demanded to know if Sir Keir Starmer is confident that he fully understands the scale of rape gangs.
Let us have the truth. He won't listen to the victims who are calling for a national inquiry. He is making this all about a bill this afternoon. Later today, he will tell Labour MPs, including in Telford, Rochdale, Bristol, Derby, Aylesbury, Oldham, Bradford, Peterborough, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Ramsgate, to tell all of these people to vote against a national inquiry into the gangs which have systematically gang raped children in their constituencies.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer fired back, urging Kemi Badenoch to drop her call for another inquiry, saying it would only delay action, with victims demanding progress rather than more investigations.
Not once in 8 years did she stand here and say what she's just said. Not once in 8 years. They didn't act on the recommendations. They want a national inquiry. We had a national inquiry, the J inquiry, the J report. 20 recommendations, not a single one implemented. Not a single one implemented.
In California, a state of emergency is underway as a massive wildfire, or multiple now, sweep through Los Angeles, forcing thousands to flee the flames. Firefighters are battling fierce winds that are turning homes into raging infernos. Over 30,000 residents have so far been evacuated, with more than 13,000 buildings now in danger. Well, the latest pictures show neighbourhoods engulfed in flames as people abandon their cars and have been seen running for safety. And millions of Californians are now on high alert as the White House has confirmed that federal resources are being deployed to help contain the blaze. The Metropolitan Police is under investigation over its handling of allegations against the former Harrods boss, Mohammed Al-Fayed. Over 100 alleged victims, some as young as 13, have come forward accusing him of decades of sexual abuse. The force is also looking into claims of corruption after reports that officers took bribes to shield Al-Fayed from accusations. The police watchdog is overseeing the investigation and aims to uncover whether officers missed any crucial opportunities to act. And a body has been found in the search for two missing British hikers in Italy's Dolomites. 36-year-old Aziz Ziriat and Samuel Harris, 35 years old, were both last heard from on the 1st of January. Authorities confirmed the body was found buried under snow. The search is now focused on two specific areas, with around 30 rescuers braving tough conditions. The families of both men have been informed about the developments and are now being supported as the investigation continues. That's it from me for today. Sophia Wenzel will have a full roundup of all the top stories at 3 o'clock, and Tom and Emily will be back with you after this break.
For the very latest, GB News direct to your smartphone. Sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome along to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Staying cold today for all of us, with a mix of sunny spells and wintry showers for many, but in the south the risk of some more prolonged wintry weather, and that's because an area of low pressure is sending some milder and wetter weather in from the Atlantic, and that's going to bump into the cold air that's resident across the UK, and we'll have a messy mixture of rain, sleet and snow for southern counties of England. So some places we'll just see rain, others will see sleet and snow, and some accumulations of snow possible at lower levels, a centimetre or two. That's enough to cause disruption in the south of England, but over hills 5 to 10 centimetres are possible, and that snow will continue into the evening as temperatures drop. Meanwhile, well, we've already seen some decent lying snow across the north and west of Scotland into much of Northern Ireland, and those snow showers will continue during the rest of Wednesday, interspersed by clear spells, and there'll be plenty of dry and clear weather for central and southern Scotland through the day. Northern England, the Midlands, much of Wales away from the south, as well as parts of East Anglia, seeing a lot of cloud developing through the afternoon, but otherwise mostly dry. And it's a cold night for all of us. In the south, we've got the system clearing away and with clear skies forming. Whether you've got the rain, sleet or snow through the day, we'll see ice patches forming. And elsewhere, where we've got those wintry showers continuing, certainly the risk of slippery surfaces first thing Thursday, because it will be a cold start to the day, widely -4, -5 Celsius, and in some places where we've got lying snow, minus double figures. Now, we start off Thursday with that cold air in place, but also with plenty of sunshine. And in fact, it's a mostly fine day. Dry with long spells of crisp winter sunshine, still a cold wind blowing, and still some wintry showers in the north and parts of the west.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Russell Holding. On the M61 in Lancashire, there are southbound delays from junction 8 at Chorley to 6 at Horwich because of emergency repairs. On Merseyside, the A552 is closed each way along Borough Road, off the A41 Chester Street in Birkenhead after an accident. Buses replaced trains between Llandudno Junction and Blaenau-Festiniog because of emergency engineering work. There are a number of road closures across parts of the north of England because of snow, especially over the Peak District. In Staffordshire, the A453 is closed between Tamworth and the A38 at Sutton Coldfield after an accident early this morning. In the West Midlands, the A435 is blocked by an accident on Hatton Way at Balsall Heath in Birmingham, causing queues. And in Hampshire on the A27, there are 2 lanes closed eastbound between the Portsbridge roundabout and Eastern Road in Portsmouth after an accident, causing queues back along the M27.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 20 minutes to 3. We're going to take you live to the Commons where Nigel Farage is speaking.
Although I do
this
note
bill
that as Women and Equalities Minister from 2022 to 2024, she didn't meet a single victim of these rapes and never raised the issue once. Insincere though it may be, I will vote for it, we will vote for it, but I beg those on the other side of the House to think, don't you believe that your constituents need to know the truth about this great evil that has happened in our country?
Hear, hear.
We have over 60 colleagues.
Well, there we go. Breaking news here on GB News. The Reform Party will be voting with Kemi Badenoch this evening. Nigel Farage and the other Reform MPs will be voting with the Conservative Party on Kemi Badenoch's motion to force an inquiry into grooming gangs.
Very interesting, isn't it? Because Nigel Farage has been very critical of Kemi Badenoch over the last few days, saying that if she'd wanted to, she could have called a national inquiry when she was the Minister for Women and Girls for a little while, and that perhaps they should not have waited this long to raise the issue. But there you go, Nigel Farage will be voting with the Conservatives.
Well, no doubt that will be one topic that is explored by the man who's up next. Yes, Martin Daubney up at 3. And what else is coming up on your show?
Guys, fantastic show so far. Tough act to follow. Not surprised about Nigel there, actually, because I think he's playing canny politics, and what he will do, of course, he will then sweep in with his own proffering of his own investigation. I think that's his tactical move there. What have I got coming up? Of course, it's all eyes on that vote as we go towards. I've got an astonishing guest on yesterday. I was joined by an Iranian woman who spoke out about how boys in her area of Birmingham were radicalised by imams today. I've got an imam coming on who says that white girls were deliberately targeted by Muslim young men because imams were promoting grooming rings historically across the Britain. He is pointing out we have a specific problem with a toxic form of Islamism, which specifically means that white girls are fair game. So that's an incredible one to look at. Also, when Robert Jenrick said we should look at a league of shame, perhaps, of countries that we shouldn't allow into the country, control immigration. I've done some multivariate analysis with Rob Bates at the Centre for Migration Control. We've fed into a computer crime data, prisoner data, arrest data, benefits data. Which countries perhaps should we have less of coming to Britain? That's coming up on the show.
Spicy stuff.
It is quite spicy stuff. And then, of course, it's freezing this Christmas today. I've got back off Starmer, I want to be a farmer. This is a farmer and his son, a boy who's 8, Oliver, and Nick, the dad, who've written a song about farming and why the government should get their hands off their farm. So loads of fun and serious business between 3 and 6.
I'm looking forward to hearing that song. I hope it's catchy.
Great.
Yeah, marvellous stuff. Well, Martin, we'll swap our seats for yours in about, what is it, 17 minutes' time.
Beautiful, thank you.
17 minutes' time. You can hang on till then, everyone at home. But yes, in other news, very sad news, a 14-year-old boy has been stabbed to death on a bus in Woolwich in south-east London.
Yes, the Metropolitan Police says an investigation has now been launched. The incident occurred on a Route 472 bus on Woolwich Church Road.
Yes, a police statement says paramedics treated him, but the boy died shortly after medics arrived.
Well, our own reporter Adam Cherry joins us now live in Woolwich. Over to you, Adam.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm standing on Woolwich Church Road at the moment, and you'll see viewers watching on television will see there's still a strong police presence behind me. This is where the young 14-year-old, who we can now name, confirmed by the Metropolitan Police, he was called Kaelin Bokassa. He was killed here, stabbed to death on that 472 bus. And if you just turn and look down by the bus stop, you can see already tributes being laid here. Now, according to media reports, his mother, Mary Bokassa, has described him as an aspiring rapper, a young, polite boy. My son and others were taken advantage of by gangs. They were groomed. He was missing for a year and was living on the street. He finally turned up at my doorstep. He was sick, underweight and tattooed. He was exposed to drugs. He probably experienced something because I could sense it. Now, as you say, the police are conducting their investigations now. They're still here at the moment. Anyone with any information has been encouraged to speak to the Met and help them with their inquiries, which they say are continuing at pace. But as of yet, no arrests have been made in that investigation.
Really terrifying. It sounds like gang warfare continuing unabated. But my goodness me, Adam, I mean, when you describe someone who is tattooed, has been living away from home, I'm not thinking about a 14-year-old boy. That is the most shocking part of all of this.
It is shocking, Tom, yeah, it's awful. It's also not the only stabbing that's happened in this area of London in the last 24 hours. An 18-year-old man was stabbed just outside a school around here just over 24 hours ago, as I say. And then in the last year, we've had 10 other such stabbings of teenagers across London, and the year before that, even more. Now, we've heard from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, yesterday, saying his thoughts are with the victims and there will be an increased police presence in the area here. But if you talk to people here in Woolwich and in this area, they're all, of course, heartbroken and grieving, but also very angry that this keeps happening. And there's a gang culture, a culture of violence here that is going unchecked and running amok in central London here.
Yeah, and for young teenagers to be so involved in it, and the talk of grooming as well, really horrifying. Thank you very much indeed, Adam Cherry, for bringing us that from Woolwich. Also, I was reading reports that he posted on Instagram just an hour before he was stabbed to death that he was looking for a Mindy, which is apparently the Somalian word for knife. So I don't know what that shows. Perhaps he knew he was under threat. Perhaps he knew someone was after him. I have no idea, but there's some evidence there.
Whenever this happens, politicians come out and they say, firstly, this is very sad, and everyone's very sad. And then they say we need to restrict access to knives. And then they try and pass a law that restricts access to one knife or another. And then we get more stabbings. Because over and over again, trying to legislate away the existence of knives is never going to work. This isn't about the availability of knives. My goodness me, I've got however many knives I have in my kitchen. You're never going to ban those. Yeah. What you have to change is the culture. You need to arrest people carrying knives.
Well, that's a key
You need
point.
to make sure that people don't think it's acceptable to carry knives. You can't just ban the item. That will never, ever work.
Well, we need to have no tolerance. We need to have no tolerance. I was reading how one police authority has a 3 times the rate of, finding out the perpetrators of crimes than London, and it's because they treat every crime as a crime. Every crime is a crime. They need to investigate. No, whether it's a small crime like shoplifting, if you can deem that a small crime, or if it's a violent crime, the police will investigate all of them.
Yeah, I mean, it is
so important.
It's extraordinary that is extraordinary, isn't it? The idea that the police will investigate every crime and somehow that's to be reported upon, that's to be remarked upon. I mean, what kind of state has our police services across the country fallen to when it's remarkable if one investigates all crime?
I mean, the idea that you've got, boys in their young teens being groomed into gangs, getting into knife violence, presumably drugs are usually involved. I mean, it's just horrendous, just horrendous. I mean, what life is that? What life chances do you have if that is your childhood?
Well, this does not particularly good afternoon after all of that, but this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more to come. Indeed, day is breaking in Los Angeles as firefighters continue to battle those wildfires. Some 30,000 people evacuated from their homes, wondering what a new day will bring.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Have you noticed that more and more stores are closing? Well, last year, apparently 13,000 stores closed for the last time on the high street.
Well, experts warn the worst is still to come for our small businesses.
Well, let's talk to retail expert Jeremy Baker. Good morning to you, Jeremy. How bad is it and what can be done?
Well, nothing can be done about it. Retail is like that. It's a boom and bust operation. So last year, let's say you had a shop and it was booming. This year, the consumer can just change their mind. They don't need to come back to your shop ever again.
Well, it is sad, Jeremy, because our high streets are the beating heart of our communities, aren't they? And for many people, I know I can relate to my high street, it is such a depressing sight, walking down there and seeing them all boarded up and closed down.
But how often do you walk down that boarded up high street? I think people move on to something else. The online world is very big, and lots of other things are very exciting. And so people, the shop. I like to go to my GP in a shopping centre and get my tests done there rather than tramp off all the way to the GP, for example. And children could go to little schools in the high street. I've seen that happen already. So lots of things could happen to the high street. It could be much more social centre, much more kind of like pubs, coffee shops, all that. Charities. I don't see anything wrong with charities taking over. But the idea of the shop-centred high street finished, that's gone. never coming back. Goodbye. It's not sad, it's just life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 10 to 3. And of course, Kemi Badenoch's call for the government to establish an inquiry into grooming gangs will be put to a vote in the Commons tonight. That was decided by the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, around 2 hours ago.
Yes, and as we know, Labour MPs are going to be whipped to vote against, so they will be defying Keir Starmer's orders and the party's orders if they decide to vote with the Conservatives on this for a full national inquiry. Keir Starmer says this is just a wrecking amendment to our schools and education bill, and therefore Labour MPs shouldn't do it, shouldn't vote with it, and also that there's no need for a national inquiry. We've already had an inquiry into child sex exploitation, and there have been a few localised reports. So that's what he's saying. Conservatives saying, no, now is the time.
You know what I'm going to say, Emily?
Go on.
Newly elected MP, newly elected Labour MP here, reading his entire speech from a printed out piece of paper. It's not acceptable.
No, it's not.
It's just not acceptable. If you really have something detailed to say, memorise it, at most have note cards. Reading it word for word from paper, it's just... what has our parliament become? They used to shout at MPs like this, reading.
Yeah, well, the calibre of some of our MPs, not talking about this chap, but just in general, perhaps is on the...
It is worth reminding ourselves, though, as we look at those benches. Labour elected 411 MPs at the last election, Conservatives just 121.
Yeah.
I mean, this amendment just isn't going to pass. Even if you add the 5 Reform MPs to 121, it's a lot smaller than 411.
Yeah, this Labour government can do what it likes.
Yeah.
Let's be frank.
Yeah.
They have a huge majority. They have an absolutely huge majority. I mean, even if everyone else ganged up, they'd get things through. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, what this will be is a symbolic moment. What this will be is a line in the sand, seeing which MPs support an inquiry and which do not. They won't be able to run away from the vote. You know, their name will be there in black and white for the public to see. I think that's probably more why the opposition has brought this motion than they think that it's actually going to pass. Because, of course, it just can't, looking at the mathematics.
But it puts those Labour MPs in a tricky position with their constituents. Some of their constituents will see them vote against a national inquiry into grooming gangs and ask why. Why are you not prioritising this issue? Why are you voting against a national inquiry? Do you not care?
Well, continuing this story will, of course, be Martin Dobney. He'll be looking forward to that vote this evening. He's up next.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there. It's another cold afternoon and evening out there with a lot of fine weather actually, but also some sleet and snow. There'll be further showers of sleet and snow into the north and northwest of the UK, whilst this area of low pressure brings a more persistent area of rain, sleet and snow into southern counties of England and South Wales. Accumulations will be patchy from this because of the mix of rain, sleet and snow, but a centimetre or two at lower levels is possible, enough to cause disruption in this busy part of the country, and also over higher parts, 5 to 10 centimetres, so Dartmoor and Exmoor. Once that clears away, widely we're going to see frost and ice with temperatures of -3, -5 Celsius across most of the UK, but as low as the minus double digits for snow-covered parts of northern Britain. Now, for southern parts of the UK, we start off with some icy patches following the wet weather on Wednesday. And Thursday will be a very cold start to the day widely across the country. Further sleet and snow showers into Northern Ireland, North Wales, as well as northern Scotland. A further build-up of snow over higher parts of northern Scotland in particular during Thursday, as well as, again, some icy patches around. It stays cold throughout Thursday morning, but for many it's a dry and bright, crisp winter's day. Plenty of sunshine through central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, eastern and southern England. Patchy cloud into Wales, northwest England, northern Scotland and Northern Ireland, with some showers around. But for the vast majority it stays dry, albeit with a continuing cold feel. Temperatures struggling to get to 1 to 3 Celsius. And that leads on to Thursday night, which will be another very cold night, widely starry skies and plummeting temperatures. We start off Friday with that cold in place, with another band of rain, sleet and snow turning up from the west before it turns much milder over the weekend.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang. From treats to holidays to fun times with the family, a totally tax-free £50,000 in cash could make you feel alive in 2025. And just one entry into the Great British Giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Figures released by the National Child Measurement Programme in 2024 found that almost 1 in 10 children was obese in the first year of school. Children living in deprived areas are twice as likely to be overweight as those in more affluent parts. Organisations like the Prepped Foundation are educating youngsters about healthy eating by giving them the skills to create balanced meals. TV chef James Golding has joined the foundation as the head of food education, and he joins me now to talk about the work. James, lovely to see you here.
Good to see you too. So Prepped used to be Table Talk Foundation, and it's now obviously Prep for Life, Prep for Knowledge. It's basically a charity to encourage kids to have a better understanding of food, but at the same time enjoy cooking and hopefully make better food choices in their life, as well as perhaps share the information we give them with their families.
Do you see them developing an understanding of the difference between healthy and unhealthy food?
Yes, I think that kids tend to sort of be taught a lot of this in school, but being able to actually ask questions to a chef and be able to cook with produce which they know is one, that is going to be tasty because they've tasted it, but two, open their eyes to food that they may not have tried before. I think that I think a lot of kids say they don't want to try stuff because they don't like the way it looks, but the way that we produce our sessions, we encourage the kids to try, and I think it really does open their eyes. It's very easy, I think, currently to be able to make easier choices, say fast food choices or that type of thing, and it's obviously giving people the ability to make the right choices, but also the skills to be able to do it. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed and something that really needs to be pushed, and that's what we're doing as a charity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Dudley Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, Tory leader Kemi Badenoch has hit out at Sir Keir Starmer's decision to force Labour MPs to vote against a national grooming gangs inquiry.
Later today, he will tell Labour MPs, including in Telford, Rochdale, Bristol, Derby, Aylesbury, Oldham, Bradford, Peterborough, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Ramsgate, to tell all of these people to vote against a national inquiry into the gangs which have systematically gang raped children in their constituencies.
And you're looking at live pictures there now from the House of Commons as that debate goes on ahead of that historic vote tonight at 7 p.m. expected time, because today at PMQ's, Kemi Badenoch called Britain's rape gang shame the worst scandal in British history. But Sir Keir Starmer blasted back. Not once in 8 years did she speak about this. As we head towards that huge vote in Parliament this evening, will survivors' demands for a full national inquiry be blocked by Labour MPs, including those who represent towns and cities affected by Britain's shame? And meanwhile, in Los Angeles, wildfires are causing havoc. As you can see there, live pictures from LA as 30,000 people are ordered to evacuate their homes after a state of emergency has been declared. And we'll be in California for the very latest. And first, there was freezing this Christmas, mocking the Prime Minister over cuts to the winter fuel allowance. And now we've got this.
Here's a message from my son. I want to be a farmer, like my dad. But Keir Starmer wants to take our land.
Absolute corker. And that was Northamptonshire farmer Nick Tarry and his boy Oliver, aged 8, who has shown his anger with changes to the inheritance tax by releasing a song that's already becoming a smash hit online. It's called Hands Off, Back Off Starmer, I Want to Be a Farmer. And that's all. And the duo, the father and the son, will be joining me later on the show. They want to be top of the crops. And that's all coming in your next hour. They just absolutely love that. You know, there's so much heavy news around at the moment. Nick and his boy Oliver blasting out that farm song. It's magnificent. They'll be joining me towards the end of the show. Can't wait for that. Ahead of that historic vote in Parliament, however, towards 7 o'clock, we are expecting huge drama in the Commons. We've been speaking with survivors, and I've got an incredible guest later in the show, an imam, a Muslim scholar who claims radical Islamist scholars have been poisoning British Muslim boys, making them specifically target girls because they are white. It's an incredible interview. You'll not want to miss it. Get in touch. GBNews.com/your say is the way to do it. But first, is your headlines with Sophie Wenser.
Martin, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 3 o'clock. These are your headlines. MPs are set to vote on Kemi Badenoch's call for a new national inquiry into grooming gangs after she warns Sir Keir Starmer's refusal could fuel fears of a cover-up. In a clash at Prime Minister's questions, a Conservative leader demanded to know if Sir Keir Starmer is confident we fully understand the scale of rape gangs.
Let us have the truth. He won't listen to the victims who are calling for a national inquiry. He is making this all about a bill this afternoon. Later today, he will tell Labour MPs, including in Telford, Rochdale, Bristol, Derby, Aylesbury, Oldham, Bradford, Peterborough, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Ramsgate, to tell all of these people to vote against a national inquiry into the gangs which have systematically gang raped children in their constituencies.
Sir Keir Starmer fired back, urging Kemi Badenoch to drop her call, arguing another inquiry would only delay action, with victims demanding progress rather than more investigations.
Not once in 8 years did she stand here and say what she's just said. Not once in 8 years. They didn't act on the recommendations. They want a national inquiry. We had a national inquiry, the J inquiry, the J report. 20 recommendations, not a single one implemented. Not a single one implemented.
In other news, 3 massive wildfires are tearing through the suburbs of Los Angeles in California, with more than 1,400 firefighters battling the flames. The fires, fueled by dry weather and strong winds, are pushing dangerously close to homes, forcing tens of thousands of residents to flee. Authorities say at this stage there's no possibility of controlling the fires. The latest pictures show buildings collapsing and smoke billowing over residential areas as people abandon their cars and run for safety. The millions of Californians on high alert. The White House has deployed federal resources to help contain the blazes. Back in the UK, the mother of 14-year-old Kellyanne Bokassa, who was stabbed to death on a bus in south-east London, has said he was groomed by gangs after running away from care and living on the streets. His mother, Mary, says he was kind, musical and talented at drawing with a love of football. Kellyanne was attacked on a double-decker bus in Woolwich just after 2:30 p.m. Despite efforts from police, paramedics and the London Air Ambulance, he died shortly after the attack. Detectives are working at pace to find those responsible, but no arrests have yet been made. And some breaking news to bring to you. UK Athletics has been charged with corporate manslaughter and a health and safety at work act offence following the death of a Paralympic athlete. A 77-year-old man has also been charged after United Arab Emirates Paralympian Abdullah Hayayi died after a metal cage fell on him while he was training for shot put in London in 2017. And we will bring you more on that story as we get it. Now, the NHS is urging patients to attend A&E alone as rising flu cases push emergency departments to breaking point. York and Scarborough hospitals are among those asking for public support, while critical incidents have been declared across several trusts, including Liverpool, Cornwall and Birmingham. One patient reportedly waited 50 hours for a ward bed, with frontline staff describing the system as overwhelmed. Flu cases in hospitals have surged to 5,000 a day, with NHS Medical Director Sir Stephen Powis warning the pressure is relentless. And a new amber warning has been issued for snow for the southwest of England, likely to cause travel delays and stranding some vehicles and passengers. Britain's bracing for a deep freeze as temperatures are set to plunge as low as -15 degrees this week, the coldest of the winter so far and potentially the coldest January in 15 years. The Met Office has issued fresh snow and ice warnings for northern Scotland, Northern Ireland, as well as the southern counties of England, with sub-zero conditions expected nationwide. The UK Health Security Agency has also warned of rising health risks, extending its cold weather alert for England until Sunday. Meanwhile, flood alerts remain in place, though conditions are drier after days of heavy rain. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Martin.
Thank you, Sophie. We have got one heck of an action-packed show. Let's get cracking. Now, should there be a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal? That is the huge question that'll be put to MPs this afternoon as the Speaker has selected a Conservative amendment to hold a vote on the issue. However, speaking at PMQs earlier, Sir Keir Starmer reiterated his view that there shouldn't be a national inquiry, saying that now was the time for action rather than further lengthy investigations. The Prime Minister is ordering his MPs, is whipping them to vote against the amendment by issuing a 3-line whip. Now, for more on this, I'm joined in the studio by GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, welcome to the show. A huge day in politics and an issue that is firmly back on the political radar, an issue they wanted to bury, they wanted to go away, there'd been inquiries, they tried to tuck it all up into bed at night time. It's back. Everyone's talking about it. And why do you think that is?
Well, frankly, it's because of this channel, GB News, and Charlie Peters, his amazing scoop this time last week that Jess Phillips, the safeguarding minister, had said no to a national inquiry that Oldham was calling for. That, amplified by Elon Musk, of course, on X, the world's richest man, the soon-to-be right-hand man of the incoming President Trump, has sent this story into orbit. And really what struck me was, first of all, I was in the chamber for Prime Minister's questions. Kemi Badenoch, unsurprisingly, used all of her questions on this, saying that people would worry about a cover-up if the government do not authorise an inquiry, the government sticking to the line that that's been done and there's no need. But let's have a little look at what Kemi Badenoch said in the chamber earlier.
Later today, he will tell Labour MPs, including in Telford, Rochdale, Bristol, Derby, Aylesbury, Oldham, Bradford, Peterborough, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Ramsgate, to tell all of these people to vote against a national inquiry into the gangs which have systematically gang raped children in their constituencies.
You know, Catherine, the fascinating thing about that list of towns there that Kemi Bay not read out, again, it's precisely the point that Charlie Peters, GB News, has been making. The J report only covered a handful of towns, and we said all along there are 44, at least others, that have never had their own inquiry. That's why the argument was made for a full national inquiry. Nevertheless, we're moving towards this vote. We're likely to get an outcome about 7 p.m, is that right? How do you think it will go, and how do you think people will vote? For example, Nigel Farage came out about 20 minutes ago saying he's going to back the Conservatives on this.
Well, Reform will back the Conservatives, but they'll lose this vote. Of course they will, because look at the maths. Labour have an absolutely enormous majority. Labour MPs are on a 3-line whip. That means if they vote for this amendment, they'll be booted out of the party effectively. So they will lose the vote, but it's not about that. It's about keeping it at the top of the agenda. It's about drawing a line in the sand between Labour and the Conservatives. Now, of course, Labour are saying, look, the Conservatives had 14 years in office. You did precious little about it. Kemi Badenoch, we never heard from her on this.
In 8 years, he said. 8 years, not a single word is what he was saying in
Chamber. And there were lots of recommendations of the J report that were not implemented. Now, the Conservatives have hit back and they've said, look, we set up a gangs task force. We were putting some of these measures through in the criminal justice bill, which fell because Rishi Sunak called that early election. So there's a lot of blame. The Tories blaming Labour for not acting now, Labour blaming the Tories for not acting earlier. A huge amount of bad blood. And, of course, we finally heard from Jess Phillips last night. But the vote, it won't go through. It will be very interesting to see, though. And, of course, the schools and wellbeing bill that's going through now, this is what the government wants to talk about. And on Monday, the government wanted to talk about the NHS, but it is all getting consumed with what we're now calling as the rape scandal, because that is what it was, let's face it.
And we had some live pictures there from the Commons. Interesting, that was Sarah Champion there speaking. She was a Labour MP who actually really did speak out against this, and at some great personal cost. I think she's still speaking. Yeah, Sarah Champion there. She Rotherham. She was speaking out in Rotherham against this. To be fair to her, she spoke out very early and very passionate about this, and we saw behind her Rupert Lowe watching intently, of course, Reform MP for Great Yarmouth. Rupert Lowe has been very, very outspoken on this. He says anybody guilty of this should either be behind bars, preferably in Pakistan. So it's caused a huge, huge conversation. Catherine Forster, you were in the Commons today for that dramatic PMQs and the lobby afterwards. Thank you very much for your expert analysis. Thank you very much indeed. Now, let's speak to that man now. GB News' national reporter, Charlie Peters, who's been speaking to the father of grooming gang survivor in Rotherham. First of all, Charlie, I don't know how much of our exchange you heard there, but front and centre, this issue back on the political map, a topic they wanted to go away. It hasn't gone away, Charlie Peters, and a huge amount of that is your fantastic reporting and Elon Musk signal boosting it. You've got another amazing story for us today. Charlie, tell us more.
Good afternoon, Martin, and welcome to Rotherham. For many people,